Hi everyone, I hope you're having a good week. This week's Parsha is Parshas Lecha, and in it we're told all about Avraham Avinu. We first introduced him at the end of last week's Sedra, at the end of Noach, where he's listed in the lineage from Adam all the way down to Noach and then all the way down to Avraham. He's a 20th generation from Adam Harishon, the first man. And we're always told that Avraham was considered the first Jew, as he discovered Hashem. But I always think this is a bit strange. It's a bit like when people credit Christopher Columbus with discovering America. He rocked up in America and there were loads of people already living there. It's a bit of a chutzpah to say he discovered America. People knew about America. So what do we mean that Avraham Avinu discovered Hashem? So last week I spoke about how Noach's father Lech actually would have met Adam Harishon. They were around at the same time. Adam was still alive. So Noach's father knows Adam Harishon. So Noach knows all about Hashem because he knew that he created the world from his father, who knew it from Adam, who obviously knew it because he was the first man. And of course, Noach knows that Hashem is still running the world because he just lived through the flood. He's the sole survivor, and his family are the only ones who have now repopulated the earth. And then 10 generations later, Avram's born, but Noach is still around. Noach's actually still alive when Avram's born. So Avram can go and talk to his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather Noach anytime he likes. And it was quite a small world at the time. They were all living in a relatively small space. And everyone would have known Noach because he was everyone's grandfather. Literally everyone that was alive at the time was descended from him. So it was very clear to that generation that A, Hashem exists, and B, that he created the world, and C, that he's still around and running the world. So what do we mean that Avram discovered Hashem? To make the question even stronger, we know that the yeshiva of Shem and Ava is still running. Shem was the son of Noach and Ava was Shem's grandson, and they ran a yeshiva together, which we know that Yaakov later studied in. So they're still alive at this point. They've been learning for 500 years, and now they've perfected their shokol, and they've got all of their thumb movements worked out so that when the Torah is finally given 500 years later, they know how to make a really good point already, and everyone can just get stuck in straight away. So in what way did Avraham discover Hashem? What do we mean by this? I think that everyone at the time knew that Hashem existed. It was beyond a doubt at that point in history. But maybe just knowing that he existed wasn't enough because they didn't really get him. They didn't really feel him or connect with him. They knew that he created the world, but they also knew that he destroyed it. Maybe they were scared of him. The Dar HaFlaga, who built the tower, certainly believed in him, and they wanted to rebel against him. It seems Avram's generation too. They were a generation of rebels. Maybe Avram didn't discover that he is, that Hashem exists, but rather who he is. Before the first time Hashem talks to Avraham at the beginning of this week's Sedra, Avram's already dedicated his life to talking about Hashem. The Medrash tells us that his father Terach was a manufacturer of idols, and that one day he leaves Avraham manning the store. And on that day, a woman comes in with a plate full of flour and asks Avram to offer it to the idols. And Avram responded by taking a stick and smashing all the idols to pieces. And then he leaves the stick in the hand of the largest idol. And his father Terach comes back to the shop and gets a shock. And he says, "What have you done to all the idols?" And Avram explains, "It wasn't me. A woman came in with a plate full of flour and asked me to offer it up to them. One of the idols said, 'I want to have it first.' The other one said, 'I want to have it first.' So they all had a big fight, and finally the biggest one rose up and smashed them all to pieces. And Avram's father, Terach, looks at him and says, 'Come on, I know you're lying. There's no way he could have done that.' So Avram replies to him, 'Well, why are you serving him then if he can't even do anything? You yourself have just said it. You don't believe he can do anything.' So his livelihood's been destroyed, and he's questioning everything that he's been doing up until now, and Terach was furious. So he takes Avram to King Nimrod, and King Nimrod, who was a powerful guy at the time, tells Avram to worship a fire, which was one of the forms of idol worship that was around at the time. And of course, Avram refuses. And so Nimrod says to him, well, if you're not going to, bow down to my fire and worship it, I'm going to throw you into it, and your God, who you believe in, can come and save you from it. And that's exactly what happened. Avram goes into the fire, and Hashem does save him. He emerges unscathed, and it's, a massive Kiddush Hashem. This is a medrash. It all takes place before this point where we meet Avram in Lecha. And you can just tell already from Avram's early years that this was a guy on a mission. He wanted the rest of the world to know Hashem like he knew him, to know that he's a powerful God, but also a loving God, that you don't need to be scared of him or go up against him, that he's on your side. I think he's the first person who really loved Hashem and who knew that Hashem loved him. He knows that this is the guy who's got his back, the guy who's going to save him from a fiery furnace. Avram lived his life fully believing in Hashem and telling everyone about him. Because when you're excited about something, you've heard about a really good offer or there's a really big sale on, you have to tell everyone about it because you're excited. And when you love someone, you're really excited about that. You want to shout it from the rooftops. You want everyone to know about it. So he's been shouting about Hashem his whole life. And then finally, that moment comes when Hashem finally speaks to him. Can you imagine how he felt at that moment? I mean, how would you feel when, you've been talking about this guy the whole time and then he finally speaks to you? Would you feel shocked, maybe in awe, maybe vindicated that you've been right all along? I mean, personally, I would have a lot of questions for him. Why do you give bees a stinger if using it kills them? Why is the colour of chicken eggs determined by the colour of their earlobes? Come to think of it, maybe this is why Hashem isn't speaking to me. But with Avram, there's none of that. There's no questions. It's as if he's been waiting to hear from him. He's expecting it. He doesn't say anything in reply. He just listens to him. That's how close he already felt to him. Even before he got Nevuah, he knew 100% that Hashem exists. But more importantly, not just that he exists, but that he's good and that he loves us. And Hashem says to him, Lech Lecha, go for yourself from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house, to a land which I will show you. He builds up in stages, one step at a time, because you can't become Avraham Avinu overnight. It's a process. Sometimes we allow the fear of what we think others think of us to stop us doing things. So he's talking about, Avram's land and his birthplace and his father's house. Sometimes we think to ourselves, if I do this, my family will think this, or my friends will think this, or that isn't the kind of thing we do where we come from. And if I start to do more, then maybe people will think of me as like a bit of a frummer or a do-gooder. They'll think that I think that they aren't good enough for me anymore. And most of the time, nobody thinks anything about what you're doing. They're not even thinking about you or what you're doing at all, because they're too busy thinking about what you think about what they're doing. So we all end up doing nothing, apart from whatever it is that we do every day, that we've always done just because we're overthinking it, or that we're not thinking about it at all. And Hashem doesn't even tell Avram where he's going to. He just says, a land that I'm going to show you. Because to Avram, it doesn't even matter where he's going. He doesn't ask. It's just enough for him to know that a journey is taking place, that he's moving, that he's growing. Sometimes we spend ages agonizing over decisions, and eventually, with hindsight, we realize that any one of the possibilities would have been good options, but we've ended up doing none of those options, doing nothing, going nowhere. And our indecisiveness or our fear of mistakes has completely immobilized us. Sometimes we feel like our life's not going anywhere. It's mundane. Especially at the moment, nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody has any news to share. And it's hard to find the impetus to get up and do something. We don't know yet maybe who we're meant to be or what we're meant to do. But we can learn from Avram. It doesn't really matter where you came from or where you're going even. You don't need to figure out the end point yet. You're only at the beginning of a journey, and the possibilities are endless, as long as you actually start moving. Otherwise, time passes by, but you're still in the same place. Unlike Noah, who we're told walked with Hashem and waited to be told what to do, it says Avram walked lifnei Hashem, in front of Hashem. Avram led the way. He was in front, and Hashem followed him. So just pick one small thing, one small change, something tiny to get yourself moving, something manageable that you're willing to commit to, and each small right thing will lead to the next right thing. And before you know it, you'll find that you've started a journey to somewhere. And like Avram, you can know that Hashem's got your back because he loves you and he's always following right behind you. Have a very good week and very good Shabbos.